we're going to create a basic JavaScript functionality on this class too that will just, let's say, uh, modify CSS property of an element. So we're going to make do with reference, like I told you on the board, that apart from inner HTML, we can also affect the attributes of an element. So we're going to see how we can affect some attributes at the same time make use of uh, CSS properties from HTML. That will affect CSS from HTML. Okay, so I'm going to create a little design. Okay, this time around we're going to have a CSS file. Okay, so I'm going to create, let me call it class 2 as well, class2.css. Okay, so class2.css, that means we have to bring in a CSS here. Okay, now we're linking to CSS slash class2.css. Okay, so this is just like the normal CSS work, but with a touch of JavaScript. Okay, so here I'm going to create a div. Okay, I'm going to create a div. Now give it an ID box. Okay, now under it, I'm going to create a HR. This is just a basic thing I normally do in most of my introductory class to JavaScript. Then I'll create a button, sorry, 3 buttons to be precise. Okay, give them ID times 3. Okay, so the 3 buttons are, the first one, I'll call it btn1. Okay, now let's say, uh, or better still, we call it btn blue for instance. Okay, so let's say inside it we call it color blue. Okay, then this second one I'll call it btn red, then inside it I'll say color red. Okay, then the last one I can say btn green. Okay, and inside it I'll say color green. Okay, so and I have 3 buttons. Now if I open my page, okay, we're going to see the 3 buttons: color blue, color red, and color green. But my box is not yet shown because the reason why. Okay, uh, so in my CSS, I'll simply come to my CSS, uh, give my box, since it's an ID box. Okay, now my box, I'm going to make it, give it a specific height, let's say 200 pixels. Then we're going to make it a square box, so we're going to give it a width of 200 pixels as well. Okay, then we can give it uh, a default background color, which we can just make light gray. Okay, light gray. Okay, so with this, if we refresh our page, we have a box. Okay, now these are box. Now the idea is when we click here to change the box to blue, we click here, change it to red, click here, change it to green. That's the idea. Okay, so what we're simply going to do here now is, um, first and foremost, we go to JavaScript. Okay, uh, I think there's something I did talk about on the board that I'm about to do here now. I don't know. Okay, let's just do it. The event. Because now that we're mentioning button, we're supposed to also know about events. Okay? I think this should be class 3. Sorry, this should be class 3. Okay? So I'm simply going to create rename. Let's rename. Okay, this will be class 3. We'll come back to it. Okay, we talk about events. So rename this to class 3. Okay, rename this to class 3. Okay, now we'll create a class 2 dot html. Okay, now why did I change that to class 3? I feel there are some things from what we've discussed so far, because if I go to event, I've not discussed events on the board. And though it's something that, because you're used to programming, it's something that you're going to be familiar with, it's not going to be something difficult. But I just want to conclude everything we've discussed on the board so far. And I believe we've not really seen the query selector. We discussed about the query selector. So let's deal with the query selector. Then also see some basic programming tools like accepting input from your JavaScript without using your HTML element. Okay? So we're simply going to create some methods and accept some data from the user and do more with methods that will return value. Okay? Of course, we've done that on the board. So let's say these are class 2. We change the other one. Okay? So now that means we also need a class 2, sorry, a class 2 JS again. JS. Okay? So now in our class 2 HTML, we have to bring in our class 2 JS. Okay? JS slash class 2. Okay? So here, okay, work more here. So now, if we have a H1 here, okay, now inside this H1, let's give it an ID, we call it MSG. Okay, this is where we want to put our message. Okay, now from our JavaScript here, we want to ask the user to a question, like ask the user, what's your name, for instance. Okay, now we want to explore other methods that can come with the uh, window context. Okay, so like we've seen the window dot alert already. Okay, window dot alert. Okay, now it might interest you to know that you can also have windows dot prompt or windows dot confirm. Okay, windows dot prompt or windows dot confirm. Then also it will interest you to know that anything that is declared on the window is accessible globally. That means you don't necessarily need to call Windows dot before you have access to it. That means I can just simply say alert without involving Windows, because anything that is declared tied to the Windows is accessible globally. So if I say alert hello world, for instance, I can, the page will also understand that I'm talking about Windows alert. Yeah. So some of the things we're going to see, like we're going to see set interval, we're going to see set timeout, we're going to see, like I showed you, prompt, we're going to see the confirm, all those are Windows methods. Okay? So as long as it's tied to the window, we can just call it and it will answer it without involving Windows. Okay? So for short, you can just say alert, you say prompt, you say confirm. Okay? So let's see the difference between prompt and confirm. Okay. So now I want to ask the user something. I'll use prompt. Just like in your Java, you say J option pane dot show message dialog or show input dialog or show confirm dialog. Okay? So the same thing, the prompt is just like your input dialog in your J option pane class. Okay? So you can simply say prompt, okay? Prompt, let's ask a question. What is your name? Okay, so if I refresh this page, it's going to give me a prompt asking me what's my name. But the problem we have here now is even though we give it a name, I'll click OK at the end. We are supposed to declare a variable to hold the name. Okay, so what I'm simply going to do is let's declare a variable. Let's name equals prompt so that here we can simply say alert, okay, alert, uh, welcome, okay, then concatenate name, okay. You see, you are coming, you are now back to programming. Now see concatenation again, okay. So you concatenate name, okay. Now, for some reason, whenever you see the word duplicated, it simply means it's just like an old fashioned. You understand? Duplicated, just like it is no longer maintainable, or they are no longer maintainable, or it's like it's phasing away. Okay. Uh-huh. But I think the name, okay, just let's leave it there. But it will still work for us the way it is. Okay. So if I come and say, let's say, what's my name? My name is Justice. Okay, it will print welcome. Okay, so that is to say we were actually able to collect the name, then use it as a variable and append it to welcome. Okay, now let's see what the confirm will do. Okay, now let's say I would like to log. Let me comment this for a while. Okay, now let's say option, okay, is equal to confirm, okay, are you sure? Okay, now let's log this option and see what it has. Okay, so if I refresh my page again, okay, let me just put something there. It gives me, are you sure? Okay, or cancel. Okay, so let me go to my console and click OK. It's giving me true. But if I did something like this and I said cancel, it gives me false. Okay, so if I'm to combine the whole thing together now, okay, I can simply say you said your name is concatenate name. Okay, then if, okay, option is equal to true. Remember, in programming, we also have our operators and their order of precedence. We are not new to those. Okay? Your if statements, your control structures, your if, while, for, all those things we are going to look into all those things here in Javascript. Okay? So now why I'm not really putting more attention into them is because, like I told you earlier before we started that is the reason you did programming before now. So it's assumed that you know those things. So when we are making use of them here, we are going to make little emphasis on them, not really major emphasis. Okay? So that is just it. So this is an if statement. Looking at this, you already know what's happening here. Okay? If option is true, because that is why I log the option in the first place. Now I log the option so that you know that okay, the option returns either true or false. So if it's true, that means you are confirming that your name is the name you actually specified for us. Okay? So let's say we want to alert to the user. Okay, if you said your name is this, if you confirm it's okay, it's true, then we will not tell you welcome. Okay, then we'll concatenate the name with it. Okay, this is just basic programming. Basic programming. Okay, so then uh, else, okay, let me not use alert this time around. We have uh, the message here. So let's print it inside the message. So we simply say what document, right? Dot what? Get by ID. Okay. So what's the ID? MSG. Okay. Then dot what? Inner test, because it's just a test, which is equal to, we now pass the test into it. Welcome. Okay. Okay. Plus the name. Okay, concatenate it. Okay, else, that means if the option you chose is not true, then we will also tell you something. Okay, let's tell you uh, let's say you don't know your name. Okay, it is a shame. Okay, good. So now there's something I want you to take note here. In this place, I told you earlier on that you can either use double or single. Okay, it's allowed, but you have to be careful. Now look at something. Assuming I did single here and I did single here, that means I'm trying to cover up with single. I'll have a problem. You see the problem here is this. It doesn't really matter. This one is not the problem. This is the problem. Okay? So if you intend having a quote inside a string, if the quote here is going to be double, you are safe. So use single outside. Okay? But if this one will be single, that means outside should be what? Double. That is what you have to be careful about. If not, you just mess up the it. Okay? So that is it. So these are a little program here. So I will refresh the program to ask us what's our name. Let's say we say Justice. Okay, I'll click OK. To ask us, you said your name is Justice. I said yes, it's okay. Welcome, Justice. Okay. Then, if I refresh my page again, I say Kingsley. Kingsley. Okay. And I said cancel. Tell me you don't even know your name. Okay, so it's just a simple elementary program. Elementary, this is just like a very basic JavaScript program. Okay, now testing our query selector. So instead of saying document.get element by ID, we can simply say document dot query selector. Okay, now if we say query selector, we have to indicate which selector we're using. Since we're using ID, this is when we now need to put the hash inside. So everything is going to work exactly the way it was working. Okay, no difference. Okay, so that is that. Okay, so with this, I believe we've been able to uh, uh, walk through everything we've done on the board so far. Okay, everything we've done on the board so far. So you also visit your W3 school, visit your W3 school, and go step by step, study the uh, whole process or chapter by chapter in JavaScript. Okay, so now I'm done. Is there any other thing remaining for me to do here? Yes, there are some things, but we can do them in class 3. Okay, you want to say something? You can say that. Okay, the image. Yes, the same thing. Same way you said dot value in text. You can say dot src. Okay. Uh-huh. But there are other ways we can also go about it, like get attributes. There is something called get attributes. We will look into it as we go along. Okay. So let's go back to our class 3. Now, class 3, we're going to look at events, event driven programs. Okay, events driven programs. Okay, now in event driven programs, we're going to see how we can work with events. Okay, so class 3. Okay, so we'll have to change our CSS to 3. Okay, we change our JS to 3. Okay, so with this, we have everything inside. Now, we already know how to make reference to our elements from our JavaScript, right? Now, how do we handle events? Okay, the simplest event we can think of, and the one we use mostly when we're doing Java is the take. Okay, so how do we do it here in JavaScript? Now, the first thing for us is this: we'll have to first of all make reference to whosoever we're talking to. Okay. Now, what I'm going to do, I'm going to do it in a simple way, though not really in a simple way to understand, but in terms of uh, uh, let's say uh, the convention is kind of the harder way. Okay, because anything I'm going to do now, I'm going to do it for the sake of learning. But if I'm working, there are better ways I'm going to do this. Of which, the more we go further with the class, the more you see those easier ways of doing it. Okay, so I'm going to do everything I'm going to do here for the sake of learning. Okay, now I'm going to declare variables. Variables that I'm going to assign all these things you're seeing on your screen now. I'm going to declare a variable that will hold this element. I'm going to declare a variable that will hold these 3 elements. So these are the elements that I'm going to work with. So let's declare a variable. Let's say let box. Okay, we declare a variable called box. Okay. So Now we can actually still use the ID we gave to them. Okay, let me make this a little bit more presentable. Okay, okay. Now we can actually still use the ID, or we can give our own name. You know, according to your programming, you already know that when you're giving a variable, it's any name of your choice, provided you follow the variable naming rules. Okay, so but I just want to go with the same name again to the ID. Okay, so let's declare a variable called box. Okay, the box will now be equal to documents. Okay, dot get, should we use query selector? Let's use query selector. Okay, dot query selector. Okay, so we simply say hash box, right? Okay, so now what I did here now is simply telling you that this variable called box here represents these elements, this div. Now, for what I've done so far. Okay. Now, before I go over to the event, let's see how we can work some things. Okay. Now, let me do something here. You were uh, making reference to source because we have source on the board. Let's assume I don't really want to work with image. Let's just go with what we're doing. So if we say box, for instance, okay, dot, okay. Now if you say box dot, we get everything we get from box, like the inner HTML, the inner text, the the other attributes. Like for instance, I can say dot title, okay, is equal to, let's say, hello, okay. Now if I do this, you know what the title will do, right? We write over title. Okay, let's see from my inspector. Use the box. Okay. Now in this case, this is where we do things like set attribute and get attribute. I told you. Okay. So that there's what we call set attribute and get attribute. That means it's not really all the attributes that we can get like that, but from what we saw so far, for our values and the inputs, we're able to get it. But I think we want to do something like the source of the image, and like this title I was about to set now, it wasn't really available for us. So you can simply just say set attribute. Now watch what will happen here. Now the attribute I want to set now is the title. Okay. Then uh, the value I want to set to it is, let's say, my box. Okay. So now what will happen here. Now according to your box, you don't have any attributes. You only have the ID attribute here from your perspective. So if you refresh this, we have an extra attribute called title. Okay. So this attribute was not originally there when we were designing our HTML, but it was from JavaScript we were able to insert the title. Okay. I think I also spelled it wrong before in the first example I was saying. Let me try this. Okay. Box dot title is equal to hello. Okay. So let's see if actually it will actually set. Okay, it sets it as well. Okay. So that is just it. So you see, you can get this, but the best way of doing things is, if you want to work with attributes, if it's not value, if it's not inner text, if it's not HTML, any other attribute is better you use is set attribute. Or if you want to get a value of it, you get attribute. Get attributes, you can set attributes. Except if you're working with value, case of input, uh, inner text or inner HTML in case of an element that has a content. Now, from what we've done so far, when we want to set some text, we use inner text or inner HTML. Then, in the case of input, we say dot value instead of inner HTML for inner text. Now, in the case of title here now, we said dot title. You understand? What I'm trying to say now is, if it's not value for input, if it's not inner HTML, it is not inner text. It is the best practice is to use the set attribute or the get attribute. We are dealing with any other attribute. Okay? Like the title now. Instead of me to say dot title, it's preferable I do it like this. That's what I mean. Instead of doing it like this, preferable like this. Okay, let me say the same title now, for instance. Okay, then here I can simply comment it. This is preferable. Okay, it's more preferred instead of this, except you're dealing with value, inner HTML. Okay, so now this is not actually what I want to bring to the table. We want to see how, apart from this now, how we can actually set or how we can actually do CSS. Okay, now in our CSS here, what I simply did here, I gave this uh, uh, what's it called? Height, gave it width, gave it background color, light. Okay. Now let me remove this background color from it. So if I remove the background color, you're not going to see what is there. Okay. Now let's assume we want to set the background color from our JavaScript, the default background color of the box. Okay. Now I can simply say box. Okay, because box, anytime I call box, that's one of the reasons I declare it as a variable so that I can use it anyhow I want it. Okay? Anytime I call box, because you've declared it here, it will make reference to that box. Okay? Now, if I want to do anything relating to CSS, okay, I simply do dot style. Okay? Now, when I say dot style, it's going to make reference to anything style for me. Okay, my JavaScript is, I don't know. Okay, so when I say dot style, then any of the style I want to make reference to, I can now call it here. For instance, if I want to say background color, I'll simply say background. I don't know why my VS Code is going like this for now. It's okay. Let's say background color is equal to, okay, let's say red. Okay, now let's see what happens. Okay, now watch something, notice something here. When I say style, inside this style attribute, okay, let me put the DOM uh, properties of this box for you. Let's log it again. Log box. Okay. Now, when we log box, we go to our console and see what is inside the box. This is the box. The box is a div. According to what your JavaScript also said. Now, if you open it, you're going to see everything about the box. Okay. Now, among all these things you've seen, you see the ones with arrow. Those ones tell you that inside them there are other subcategories. You see, when you're doing HTML, just a div. It's only div you know there. But the browser is seeing everything about it. That is how the brother was able to interpret it. That is according to the document of the owner. So these are the things the brother is seeing about the book. That ordinary deed we are seeing everything about the book. So now let's go to look for some the property style. Now look at style. This style is telling you that it's a CSS2 property. Okay, and you can see background color red according to how we subscribe. Now, if I open this style up, every style that you can apply with your CSS, ranging from your WebKit to your align, to your display, to your background image, to everything you can do with CSS. It's inside that style. Okay, that means even the height and the width, the font weight, the font style, the display flex, display grid, display anything at all. You can use Javascript to control it. Okay? So that is just it. So you see everything is here, both margin, padding, everything. Padding. Okay? Now, there's something else I want you to take note of. Now, if we check, let's take this padding for instance. Look at here, under padding, we have padding block, padding hyphen block, or let's go to the background color since we done the background color. Okay, background color, background color. Okay, now look at, normally if you are doing your CSS you do background hyphen color, right? Background hyphen color, you are doing your normal CSS. But though there are ways you can also do it like this, but whenever you want to use this same thing as CSS, it must be inside the code. But if you want to make reference to it as a property, it cannot be background hyphen color. Rather, it will be background color with the camel cases. You see the color? Yes, there's supposed to be a hyphen. The hyphen will be removed, then the next letter after the hyphen will be a capital letter. You understand this? So that's what I did here. If you watch what I did here, background color. So if I want to say, let's say, which other padding button, for instance, you simply say padding the B, so now the capital letter. Instead of say padding and the button. Okay, so that is just it. So you see that with this, your browser understands everything about every element that is here. This is how the browser reads different in the DOM, everything about something has been defined. The model of that. So if you got H1 from the DOM, the browser will be able to understand that H1, these are the properties that H1 has. You understand? If you pick any element at all you pick, there's a, a model for it according to the DOM, and the browser works according to that model. That is how the browser is able to know that okay, this is a H1, this is how it should be, this is a paragraph, this is how it should be, this is a form, this is how it should be. Because everything has been modeled. Good. So to round up our class for today, we're going to make this functional. We already know how to make color here now. So what we're going to do now is to add events to this that will trigger the color. Okay, so it's not just adding, okay, by default, we said we're going to add a default color. So what we added before was light gray, right? Light gray. Okay. So light gray by default, it will be light gray. Okay. So now we want to add events to these three buttons. So the first one, ID button blue. Okay. So using our query selector tool, okay, we can declare the variables, declare all the elements as variables here. Okay. So let's declare them at the top. Okay. Declare all elements as variables. Okay. So I'll simply just, let's say, let me change the convention here. Let's say blue BTN. No, I called it BTN blue then. So that you remember, it's not a must that the ID, this is a variable, any name of your choice. As long as you remember that this is the name I'm going to use. I'm changing the whole thing now. Okay? Or should I leave it the way it was, the way we did it with the ID? Okay, let me just leave it like that for this one. Okay, so the first one is btn blue. So we declare variable btn blue. That means hash btn blue is our blue button. Then we have our red button. So btn red will be hash red. This is our query selector. Then also btn green. Btn green will be equal to btn green. Okay. Now there's something I want you to take note of. Look at let boss cannot redeclare the block scope variable. That's one thing. Let's use, for instance, var here. Var doesn't have any nothing. You see, like I said when I was talking about it on the board, I said the length is strict. You understand? It's strict. So when you declare let, it assumes that okay, you declared this variable before. Why are you declaring it again? Why var is kind of loose. You understand? So that is just it. So let's take it back to let. So that is why most times when you're coding, you simply prefer the let because we keep things clean for you. Okay? To avoid interference. Huh? Yes. There are cases where var is very, very useful. Okay? So now that we have all our buttons and our box, now how do we go about adding events? Or okay, now there is a method in JavaScript that is tied to every element that is called event add event listener. Add event listener. So let's start with the btn blue. Btn blue dot add event listener. Okay. Now when we say add event listener, now what it will simply do is it will tie a listener to that button to listen to a certain event. Okay. Now, before I do this, let's go to our inspector. Now, this is our blue button. Okay. There's nothing in it. Okay. Now, uh, here I have an error here. You can see from here you can see indication that there's an error. Then here I say event target dot event listener. At least two arguments are required, but only zero passed. That means we need some arguments within that add event listener, but I didn't pass anyone. Okay, so now we'll come back here and pass The first argument is which event you want to listen to. Which event you want to listen to. So we want to listen to the click event. That means when you see a click, what are you going to do? That's the next argument. What should it do when someone clicks on, or when he sees a click event? Okay, what should it do? We simply say box dot style dot background color is equal to uh, blue. Okay, so we want it to set sorry we want it to set the box background color to blue when you see a click event. Now, if I refresh my page, uh, argument number two is not an object. It's supposed to be an object or a method. Sorry. Now, I made mention of something called the callback function. The function that does not have a name because it's already within the context of what or where it's going to perform the task it's meant to perform. Example of where you do that is here. When you see the click event, we are adding a listener, event listener, and we are listening to the click event. When the click event happens, what is going to play here? Let's have a function. Okay. Okay. Now, what will the function do? A function without a name here now. Okay. Now, inside the function, we'll simply tell it, okay, this is what we want you to do. Watch. A function, the only thing missing in a normal function from what we've done is the name. The name. You understand? So you see have the curly brace open and the closing curly brace. So within it, okay, that is where we now put what we want it to do. But I just made it like this for clarity and simplicity sake. Okay, you get. So with this now, we will not have an error again. Then if we go to inspector, we're going to see that there is an event according to your inspector telling you that there is an event tied to this button. So when you open it from your inspector, you're going to see that it's a click event. Now, if you open it, it's going to tell you the function that is performing from your inspector. You understand? So if you didn't see this event here, know that it will not work on your browser because your browser is not noticing that there is an event. So normally this is, these are your developers too. Already your user will not come here and see empty. Your user will just see what's here. Okay? So when you click here, okay, the event will be triggered. But there's something happening here now. Let's go over here. Okay? Now we say box.style. Now what's happening here now? It's not working. Uh, okay, let me try alert something here. Hello. Okay, so refresh and click. It's alerting. And why is our box not working? Okay, now there's something I want to try here now. Now let's remove this legs and use back here and see what will happen. It's not working. That means it's not the legs issue. What could be the problem? So let's remove that and okay. That is the problem. See, little mistake now. We are not uh, comparing, we are assigning. Okay, so that is just it. So prepare this and that's there we go. Okay, so thank you for that. I skipped that. I didn't miss it. I'll be looking for it. So now same thing we'll do for the others, but let's see for BTN red. Okay, now in BTN red we can simply use the EX6 format. Okay, so we are exploring all options. Okay, so this is instead of using pattern, we use this. Okay, so I'll prefer to also maintain this for BTN green. Okay, so we'll just change the color, change it to green, and also change it to red. So with this, we've succeeded in adding event listener to the button. At the same time, giving it a callback function and telling the function what to do when you see the click event. So with this, we can actually just come here, toggle the colors on our event. Okay, so that is just it, and that is it for today.